Hi, everybody. This is Silvio Canto in Dallas, Texas on Monday, June the 24th. And welcome to a commentary. Well, we took a couple of days off this weekend to do a little family travel, but everything is back to normal this week. Just very hot here in North Texas. That's all I will tell you. 100 degrees is forecast for lots of this week. So if you're coming to Texas or North Texas, make sure you stay somewhere where they have a swimming pool because you're going to need it in the evenings or in the morning or whenever you have some free time. Let me begin by talking about the amounts of cash flowing into the Trump campaign. It's really incredible. The amounts of contributions, the number of contributors, the amounts of cash coming into this campaign. It's a pretty incredible number. And this kind of ties into former Governor Cuomo, who was the other night on the Bill Maher show. Now, I don't usually watch that show, but I get the clips, the clips that they have on the internet where people put up segments of the show. And Governor Cuomo was talking about this case in New York, the case that was brought against Donald Trump, where he was found guilty of these felonies. And he basically said this should have never happened. Had he been the governor of New York or the attorney general of New York's the attorney general, this would have never happened. And then he said something that I thought was very important. He said that he understands why people are angry. He understands why people see the injustice here because he's being targeted because his name is Donald Trump. And I thought it was fascinating for a former governor of New York to say that. And then Bill Maher, as a follow-up to what he said, reminded everybody of all the money that the Trump campaign was getting and how people are just sending money in to show their anger and their incredible disdain for the injustice that we have just seen in New York against Donald Trump. Again, love him or hate him. You can hate him all you want. But my goodness, this is not good for the country to have this kind of injustice, or the targeting of a man. Using the legal system to target a man is not something that we do in the United States. Now, it is interesting that on the same day that this happened, meaning the interview with Governor Cuomo and Bill Maher, that Jonathan Turley, the professor at university who writes some really good analysis about legal issues, he puts out an article. It's over at his website, jonathanturley.org, I think it is, and Turley, Turley. And Jonathan Turley, Professor Turley, writes about how bad the New York judicial system is looking to the rest of the country. He said for years, people in New York thought that they were so much better than the rest of the country. But now the country is looking at New York and wondering what the heck is going on there. So this is all happening. The cash is coming in. More and more Democrats like Cuomo, more and more reasonable people like Turley. Alan Dershowitz is saying pretty much the same thing. This fellow, Jacob Epstein, Democrat, is basically saying the same thing. So more and more people are looking at all of this and wondering what the heck going on. I think what's happened is that the camel, the back of the camel, whatever the expression is, I think the excesses against Trump have broken the camel's back. And people are beginning to look at the Trump candidacy as a way of showing protest against this kind of judicial overreach and irresponsible judiciary. So that's where I think all this cash is coming in for that reason. People are just angry. They're angry that this is being done to a fellow citizen. Again, you don't have to like Trump, but he is entitled to certain rights as a citizen, and none of that, frankly, was observed in New York. I mean, he didn't know until the very last minute what the crime was. I mean, is that right? No, it's not right. That's not the way the system is supposed to work. So, it's turning in Trump's favor. And honestly, I'm happy, not just because I support Trump, but because I think we need a better way of doing things than the way that they've been done in New York. We don't need that kind of justice. It doesn't do anybody any good. It doesn't do the country any good. It certainly doesn't do New York any good, but the country suffers as well. Well, they have a debate coming up on Thursday night, and why they're doing this, all kinds of speculation as to why Biden is doing it. I mean, so we can play that game all day long. I think many people agree that maybe they're doing it now for one of two reasons. Number one, the Democrats want to see if Biden can handle this. But also, frankly, they need to shake up the campaign. They need to do something because what they're doing is not working. I just talked about using the system, the judicial system, as a weapon. That's not working. You haven't had any change in the polling data, a point here, a point there, but nothing that certainly would make the Democrats feel that they're scoring any points. And remember another thing too, and I heard this the other day, which is very important to say. When you see these, polls between Trump and Biden, and they're basically in the margin of error, one up here, another one up there. I mean, basically, +1, -1 kind of thing. That's all within the margin of error. But remember that Donald Trump can lose the popular vote and win the election. Joe Biden cannot lose the popular vote and win the election. So when you see these polls that say, Trump is up 1 or Biden is up 1, if you're the Biden campaign, you're going to take those differences a lot more seriously if Trump is up in the popular vote. Because if Trump is up in the popular vote, it's going to be a long night for Joe Biden. That's all I can tell you. It's just going to be a very long night. But the debate itself is interesting because I think CNN made a huge mistake by assigning Jake Tapper as the moderator. Jake Tapper has a history of being anti-Trump. He has a history of saying things about Trump. And that's not the kind of person you want moderating a debate. You want somebody who has no, inclination one way or the other politically. Someone who's been a straight shooter, someone that you look at and you say, I don't care who he voted for, but he can do this fairly. I don't think Jake Tapper has that reputation. In fact, it's the exact opposite. So I'm kind of surprised that they pick a fellow named Jake Tapper. Now, I'm sure that he's a senior correspondent over there, and maybe it was his turn to do it. But if I was CNN, I would have found a completely boring CNN commentator with no political baggage whatsoever and said, hey, you're going to do the moderation. Now, I don't know about the other lady, Dana Bash or whatever her name is. I don't know much about her. She hasn't had the kind of let's say, she hasn't done the kinds of attacks on Trump that Jake Tapper has. But I think having Jake Tapper as a commentator is an absolute mistake. Absolute mistake. And I believe that the pressure is going to be on Jake Tapper to be fair, because much of the country is not expecting him to be fair. And that's not a good position to be in when you're the moderator. A couple of other quick things. I have a post coming out on Tuesday morning suggesting that Vice President Rubio should be the vice president. I think it makes a lot of sense for Donald Trump. He's got some other good choices, as I write in my article. Senator Cotton. I like Secretary Pompeo. Governor Youngkin is fabulous. I kind of like Rubio. I think Rubio is the one with the biggest appeal that he can. And there's an article, by the way, in the New York Times basically saying that Democrats are more afraid of Rubio than any of the others because he can touch bases that not all of the candidates can touch. So I don't know if it's going to be Rubio, but honestly, I would love to see Rubio as the vice president. I think he would be a very effective vice president. Sorry about that. Excuse me for that. But so I do think Vice President Rubio would be effective in that role. The Supreme Court is right now looking at a very important case, immunity. And I think, I don't know how they're going to conclude. I'm not sure exactly when this opinion comes out. I think it's very soon. I think they're going to conclude that the presidency has immunity. And I was listening to Hugh Hewitt, who's a lawyer and someone who knows a great deal about constitutional law. And he believes that the Supreme Court not only has to conclude that the president has immunity to protect not only future presidents, but even ex-presidents like Obama and Clinton, or Biden when he leaves the presidency. But they also have to make a statement, direct, very direct, about having state district attorneys going after a presidential candidate. It's one thing to go against a governor in your state, but it's quite another thing when you have these state attorney generals, district attorneys, like in Georgia, like we saw in Colorado, where they wanted to take Trump off the ballot, or this travesty that we're seeing in New York, I think it's extremely important that the word gets out there that that's not what a district attorney is supposed to be doing. And so I think that this immunity decision will be not just favorable to Trump in the short term sense, but I think it's going to be favorable to the presidency in the long term sense. Because really, what you're talking about here is the presidency of the United States and protecting the president, future presidents really, against this kind of mind boggling, attacks by district attorneys and everybody suing the former president. That's something we have not done in the United States before, and something that we should not begin doing. And I think that's where the Supreme Court is going to come down, that they're going to say, yes, he has immunity for the most part doing his presidential work. Obviously, the stuff that he did before or the stuff that he does after the presidency, that's another matter. But as far as what he does in the office of president, he should be protected. And I think that's the way the Supreme Court is going to rule. They're not going to say blanket immunity. There's no such thing, obviously. But they're going to say that immunity in whatever he does as president of the United States. I think it's a good way of saving the presidency, because this is not just about Trump. This is about the presidency, and especially future presidents who may have to make some very tough decisions, as presidents have to do. And that's something that I believe will come down from the Supreme Court over the next couple of days. Thank you for listening. This is Silvio Canto in Dallas, and we'll talk to you later. Good luck to the Texas A&M Aggies tonight in Game 3, final game of the College Baseball World Series. We'll talk to you later.